I always thought the slow unraveling of a marriage would be loud. I imagined shouting matches, slammed doors, ultimatums shouted from across the room. But when it actually started, it was just quiet. My name is Daniel. I'm 44, a systems analyst, and I've always lived a life based on order. Processes. Predictability. My wife, Rachel, used to love that about me. She said I made her feel safe, grounded, that I was her constant. But somewhere along the way, I guess constant became boring. We've been married 16 years. No kids. Not by choice, just biology. We tried. Went through the rounds of fertility treatments, the endless doctor appointments, the tears. But nothing stuck. And after a while, Rachel stopped bringing it up. I did too. We found our own rhythm, or at least I thought we had. That Thursday evening was normal. I came home around 6:30, like I always do. Rachel was already there, in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine. There was chicken thawing on the counter, and the smell of lemon and garlic told me she'd already started prepping dinner. She was wearing a soft gray sweater I bought her last Christmas. Her hair was pulled back, her makeup light. "Hey," I said, hanging up my coat. She didn't smile, didn't come over to hug me like she usually did. Instead, she gestured toward the dining room. "Can we talk for a minute?" I knew the tone. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even tired. It was prepared, scripted. I sat down across from her, watching her carefully. Her fingers played with the stem of the wine glass. "Daniel," she began, "I've been thinking a lot lately. About us. About me." I nodded slowly. "All right." She took a breath, then exhaled like she was releasing a burden. "I feel like I'm losing myself in this routine. I wake up, go to work, come home, cook dinner, watch TV, go to sleep. Repeat. Every day. That's life, Rachel," I said, keeping my voice even. "That's how most people live. But it's not enough anymore," she said quickly, cutting me off. "I need space. I need to figure out who I am outside of this marriage. Outside of you." She looked up then. Her eyes were glassy but dry. "I'm not saying this is the end," she added. "Just a break. Time apart." I leaned back in the chair and felt my hands slowly fold together in my lap. My mind didn't panic. It just started calculating, running the numbers, mapping out implications. Not because I didn't care, because I cared too much. I noticed the signs, of course. The new gym membership, the sudden obsession with self-care, the way her phone had become a permanent extension of her hand. She used to leave it lying around the house, but lately, it was always with her. And she changed the lock screen password. Still, hearing her say it, "I need space," felt like the final click of a key in a lock that had been slowly turning for months. "Okay," I said, after a long silence. "If that's what you need." Her eyebrows lifted. She hadn't expected that. "You're okay with it?" "No, but I'm not going to beg you to stay, Rachel." She looked away, took another sip of wine. We didn't talk much after that. She said she'd be staying with her friend Monica for a while, just until I sort things out. Monica, the divorcee who'd recently bought a new condo and a convertible. I found a connection ironic. That night, I lay in bed alone. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just stared at the ceiling and felt something shift inside me. Not break. Harden. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I called in, said I needed a personal day. Then I made a list. A long one. By noon, I called a lawyer. By evening, I had locked all joint credit cards, leaving a clean $3,000 balance in our main checking account. Just enough to cover her next few weeks. I redirected my paycheck to a new bank. Changed my passwords. Checked the cameras. Downloaded backup copies of everything from the home server. Rachel wanted space. I was going to give it to her, with clear, irreversible boundaries. 3 days passed before she texted. "Hey, Monica and I are going to Palm Springs for the weekend. Needed some sun. I'll call you Monday." She didn't ask how I was. Didn't say she missed me. Just offhand, like I was an afterthought. And that's when I knew. It wasn't space she wanted. It was freedom. From me. From our life. From a security I had built so carefully. But freedom has costs. And Rachel had no idea how high they were going to be. Rachel came back on a Tuesday. I knew the moment she pulled into the driveway because the doorbell camera lit up my phone screen. She had a sun hat tucked under her arm and oversized sunglasses still on, though the sun had already dipped behind the trees. Her duffel bag hung from one shoulder, and she looked happy, relaxed, like the weekend had worked some sort of magic on her. I stayed sitting in the living room. I didn't go to the door. A few moments later, the front door creaked open. She still had her key, of course. That was intentional. I wanted her to see everything as is, unfiltered. She walked in with a light voice. "Daniel? Hey, I'm back." I answered evenly. "Welcome home." She stepped into the room, her smile faltering slightly when she saw me on the couch, my laptop open, a pile of papers spread out on the coffee table. No kiss. No warmth. I'd shut that door days ago. "Everything okay?" she asked, dropping her bag by the stairs. "You didn't answer my text yesterday." "I was busy," I replied, setting up my own checking account. Health insurance updates. Filing a separation notice with HR. That kind of thing. Her face twisted. "What? I thought we agreed this was just a break." "No, Rachel," I said, my voice cold. "You said you needed space. You said you wanted time. I just respected it. That's all." She blinked, processing. "So what? You're separating our finances." "Already did. 3 days ago." She folded her arms. "Why so fast?" I stared at her. "Because I know what this is. You don't want space, Rachel. You want out. You just didn't have the courage to say it outright. So I helped you." She stood there, stunned. Then I watched the shift. The flicker of annoyance that hardened into resistance. "You're punishing me." "No," I said calmly. "I'm adapting." She scoffed. "God, you're such a machine, Daniel. Everything is a process. A system. Don't you feel anything?" I closed my laptop gently. I did. Now I act. She left the room in a huff. I heard her open drawers upstairs, likely looking for things she'd left behind. 20 minutes later, she came back down. "Where's the joint credit card?" she asked, her voice tight. "Closed. You're no longer an authorized user." "What about the Amazon account?" "I changed the login." "You'll need your own." She laughed bitterly. "Wow, you really wasted no time, huh?" I shrugged. Efficiency is sort of my thing. She stormed out without another word, slamming the door behind her. But I didn't flinch. Not this time. I wasn't the man who used to wait by the phone or second-guess his gut. The next week passed in silence. Until Friday morning. That's when I got a call from my lawyer, Melissa. She sounded alert, almost amused. "Daniel," she said, "you're going to want to see this." She forwarded me an email from Rachel's newly retained attorney. In it, they requested an emergency financial mediation session. Apparently, Rachel had discovered that she no longer had access to any of the money she used to rely on, and that her weekend getaway, a new gym membership, and several business lunches had been charged to our now-closed joint card. I chuckled bitterly. She thought I'd just keep funding her freedom. Melissa was professional as ever. "We'll respond on Monday. Keep all documentation in order." That afternoon, I did something else. I hired a private investigator. It felt wrong at first, like I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. But deep down, I needed clarity, confirmation. I needed to know if I was crazy or if my instincts were exactly right. 2 days later, I got the first update. A man, mid-30s, frequently seen with Rachel, meeting for coffee, picking her up from Monica's condo. The report noted he was a yoga instructor, and apparently, he also had a thing for married women. His name was Ethan. I didn't say anything to Rachel. Not yet. Instead, I scheduled another meeting with Melissa and handed her everything. The photos, the texts, the timeline. Her lips tightened as she scanned the contents. "This will help," she said simply, "if it comes to court." And I knew then it would. A few days later, I got a text from Rachel. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer. Another followed. "I think we've both made mistakes. I want to figure things out. Maybe therapy?" I stared at the screen, letting the weight of her sudden interest settle on me. I replied with one word. "Why?" The typing dots flashed, then disappeared. She didn't answer, but I knew what she was realizing. The man she left behind wasn't going to be a safety net anymore. It was a Saturday morning when the knock came. Not the doorbell, an actual knock. Loud, hurried. I was in the kitchen, making coffee. The kind Rachel used to complain was too bitter, too dark. Now, it was exactly how I liked it, black and strong, just like my new mornings. I opened the door slowly, unsure who I expected to see. Rachel stood there, but she wasn't alone. Next to her was a man I recognized immediately. Ethan, the yoga guru, the enlightened smile guy. She had brought him to my house. Daniel, we need to talk, she said. I didn't move, didn't invite them in. My gaze shifted to Ethan. He shifted his weight awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable. Do you have a moment? She asked again, softer now. For what exactly? To clear the air, she said, before things get worse. Worse for who? Please, she said, a flash of real emotion in her eyes. I stepped aside. Let them in. We sat in the living room. Ethan didn't sit, just hovered behind her like some kind of emotional bodyguard. Rachel looked like she'd been rehearsing this speech. She launched into it. I know how this looks. I know you think I lied, Daniel. But this, she gestured to Ethan, wasn't like that. It wasn't planned. It just happened. After things between us got cold. After I started feeling invisible. You wanted space? I said, keeping my voice flat. You got it. Along with every legal and financial boundary that space entails. Ethan finally spoke, his voice low. Man, look, I didn't know all the details. Rachel said you guys were separated emotionally long before the paperwork. I cut him off. And that makes it okay? He blinked. No, I didn't mean. I have pictures, I said. Time-stamped. Dated. A record of everything. You can keep pretending this was innocent. That's your right. But don't insult me in my own home. Rachel's mouth fell open slightly. You hired someone to follow me? I needed facts, I replied, because I wasn't going to live with a story anymore. I needed truth. And now I have it. She stood up, defensive now. You're being cold, Daniel. Cruel. I came here to apologize. To explain. I looked at her, really looked. Her face was taut, her jaw clenched, her eyes glossy but hard. She wasn't sorry. She was cornered. Ethan stood silently behind her, his aura of calm cracking under the tension. I think we're done here, I said. Rachel turned toward the door, but paused. You think you're better than me now. That just because you moved fast and locked everything down, you won. There's no winner here, Rachel, I replied. But I'm not the one standing in a stranger's house begging for understanding. Her eyes narrowed. You think you're so stable, so moral, but you're just scared of living. Maybe, I said, but I sleep at night. They left without another word. 2 days later, I received a notice. Rachel was contesting the separation terms. She wanted spousal support. She claimed financial hardship and emotional distress. Her lawyer's letter was dramatic and overreaching. Melissa wasn't fazed. They're playing desperation cards now, she said. We'll respond with facts. Always facts. It was around this time I got a call from Ethan. Blocked number. I answered. Hey, it's me. Ethan. I didn't say anything. I just wanted to say, I'm out. I'm not part of this anymore. Rachel, she's not who I thought she was. I said nothing. She said you were cold, unfeeling. But I see now you were just surviving. And she was already gone long before I showed up. Still, I stayed silent. I'm sorry, man, he added. For real. I hung up. Later that night, Rachel called too. Left a voicemail. She was crying, angry, rambling. You've destroyed everything. Why couldn't you just talk to me? Why'd you have to go nuclear? I just wanted to find myself. And now I'm the villain. I sat in the dark, the voicemail still playing, her voice echoing off my quiet walls. She wasn't sorry. She was scared. Of being alone. Of being accountable. And that was when I realized she never thought I'd let her go. Not really. She thought the man she left behind would stay tethered to her, like some loyal satellite. But I had become something else. Not bitter. Not vengeful. Just done. The summons came quicker than expected. A court date was set. Rachel was pushing for emergency support hearings, painting herself as a deserted spouse with no financial backing and declining health due to stress. The irony would have been amusing if it hadn't been so exhausting. Melissa was ready. She always was. She compiled every receipt, every screenshot, every timeline showing that Rachel's decision to walk out had come first, long before I changed the locks on our accounts. But still, something gnawed at me. Why was Rachel escalating now? She wasn't stupid. Emotional, yes. Impulsive, definitely. But not dumb. Not enough to force a courtroom battle. She had no real leverage to win. Unless she thought she had leverage. Unless there was something I didn't know. That's when the email came. It was from someone named Elise. No subject line. The body was short. Hi, Daniel. I hope this isn't crossing a line, but I thought you deserved to know. I've worked with Rachel for years at the foundation. I'm not sure what story she's told you about her new life, but I can confirm she hasn't been honest. Not with you, and not with anyone else. I have something you might want to see. Let me know if you're willing to talk. It felt like bait, but curiosity won out. I replied simply, what do you have? The response came within hours, a Dropbox link. I opened it. Inside were scanned documents, receipts, email threads, all tied to Rachel's role at the nonprofit foundation where she worked part-time. But it was the timestamps and expense reports that made my heart sink. Dinners listed as client meetings were at resorts she and Ethan had visited. Uber charges logged during hours she claimed to be at home. Personal wellness retreats billed to a company card under outreach initiatives. She hadn't just been careless. She had been embezzling subtly, quietly, and systematically. The clincher? There was one flagged reimbursement email thread where Rachel claimed she had to travel for a conference in Sedona, dates that perfectly aligned with the yoga retreat Ethan posted photos of on his now-deleted Instagram. My hands trembled as I forwarded everything to Melissa. 10 minutes later, she called me. This changes everything, Daniel. This isn't just divorce anymore. If the foundation presses charges, she could face jail time, I said quietly. Melissa didn't answer right away. That's not our goal, but it gives us complete leverage. We can settle on our terms. You can walk away clean. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. A hollow ache sat in my chest. I didn't want Rachel in jail. I didn't want vengeance. I just wanted my life back, my peace. But I knew what I had to do. I requested a private mediation. Melissa drafted the motion. It caught Rachel's team off guard. They expected us to wait for the court date. But I didn't want a spectacle. I wanted resolution. When Rachel walked into the neutral conference room 2 days later, her smile was a forced curve that didn't reach her eyes. She sat across from me with her attorney and barely looked up. The meeting began civilly. Melissa calmly laid out our terms. Division of property, no spousal support. Each party walks away with their own assets. Rachel's lawyer scoffed. That's not acceptable. She's been out of the workforce for years. She relied on Daniel financially. Melissa stayed poised. We have evidence that Rachel misappropriated funds from her employer to finance personal excursions. If this proceeds to court, we'll be submitting that evidence and notifying the foundation. Rachel's head snapped up. What are you talking about? Her lawyer whispered, clearly caught off guard. I know about Sedona, I said, looking her in the eyes. I know about the retreats, the dinners, the fake meetings. And so does Elise. She's the one who sent me the files. Rachel's face drained of color. That's a federal-level offense, Melissa added calmly. And it puts your client in a precarious legal position. Her attorney leaned toward her, whispering quickly. Rachel's hand shook. Her gaze met mine for the first time in weeks. No more fire, no more fight. Just fear. She nodded slowly. Fine, she said. We'll settle. It was over in 20 minutes. No spousal support. No division of retirement. Just a house, sold and split cleanly. My account stayed mine. Hers. As I stood to leave, Rachel reached out across the table. Daniel, I paused. I never meant for it to go this far. I didn't say anything. I thought you'd chase me, she added quietly. I didn't know you'd vanish. I didn't vanish, I said. I just finally saw you clearly. I walked out. Outside the mediation building, I stood on the sidewalk and breathed in the air like it was the first real breath I'd taken in years. The war was over, but the healing, that was just beginning. 3 days after we finalized the settlement, I got a call from Elise again. Her voice was tense, serious this time. No polite introductions. They know. Elise. I asked confused. Who knows? The foundation's board, she said. The financial committee met yesterday. Someone else must have flagged the Sedona retreat, and it unraveled fast. I'm sorry. I thought they wouldn't dig further once she resigned. I rubbed my forehead. She resigned. She quit last week. Sent a short email saying she was leaving for personal reasons. But it didn't stop the review. I felt the weight of her words settle like a stone in my gut. What happens now? They're opening a formal investigation, Elise said. She could be facing charges, Daniel. Serious ones. I thanked her, hung up, and sat there in silence for a long time. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt drained. That night, I got a message from Rachel. I need to see you. Please. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but part of me still needed to see how far she'd fallen from the woman I once promised forever to. We met in a quiet coffee shop across town. She looked different, less polished, no makeup, hair tied back in a loose, trembling bun. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her hands kept shaking. She didn't order anything, just sat across from me, staring. I'm under investigation, she said flatly. They froze my accounts. I can't get into my savings. The foundation's legal team called me yesterday. I know, I said. She nodded like she expected that. I didn't take that much, she whispered. Just small things. Things I thought I could justify. I didn't answer. Her voice cracked. Ethan's gone. He disappeared the day I told him about the investigation. His number changed. He ghosted me. He left me alone with all of this. She reached into her bag and pulled out a crumpled letter. It's a notice of potential charges. They're deciding whether to refer it to federal prosecutors. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Not for what was happening, but for what she had become. She looked at me, broken and desperate. How did we get here, Daniel? I hesitated. We stopped being partners and started being escape plans for each other. Her eyes filled with tears. She didn't cry. Just let the silence carry the weight. I didn't come to ask for anything, she said slowly. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For the lies, the arrogance, for taking what you built and burning it to the ground. I stayed quiet. I don't deserve your kindness, she whispered. I don't even deserve this conversation. But you should know, I've started therapy. Real therapy. I'm going to plead guilty. No more pretending. That surprised me. No lawyers trying to spin a narrative? She shook her head. They offer me a deal if I cooperate and pay restitution, which means I'll probably lose everything I've left. I stared at her. The woman across from me wasn't the same Rachel who'd smirked from behind overpriced sunglasses, who paraded Ethan through our front door. This woman was scared, stripped of pride, human again, and something inside me softened, not in the way it used to, but in a way that allowed me to breathe without bitterness. I hope you find your way through this, I said, standing. She looked up at me. Daniel, I think I loved you. I just didn't know how to be with someone who wasn't broken. I didn't respond. I just turned and walked out. But I didn't feel the anger anymore. I didn't feel haunted. I felt light, as if some invisible weight had finally fallen off my shoulders. Back home, I opened the box I hadn't touched in months. Inside were old photographs, mementos of a life built slowly and lost suddenly. One photo stopped me. Rachel and I, young, barefoot in our first apartment, pizza boxes on the floor, smiling with no idea how life would twist us into strangers. I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it carefully, placed it in an envelope, and set it on the shelf. Not as a memory I clung to, but as something I survived. A month passed in quiet. No drama. No texts. No lawyers. No more headlines in my mind screaming about who I used to be or who she became. Just silence. And for the first time in years, I welcomed it. Then, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. My name on the front in a slanted script I recognized immediately. Rachel. I almost threw it out. Almost. But curiosity has a cruel way of sitting you down, no matter how much healing you think you've done. I opened it. Daniel, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I had to try. The sentencing hearing is next week. I'm pleading guilty to reduced charges. They offered a deal, 3 months of house arrest, community service, and repayment. I took it. I didn't want to fight anymore. Not them. Not you. Not myself. I've started to understand what I did. Not just the legal stuff, the stealing, the lying, but what I did to us. I used your stability like a ladder, climbed as high as I could, and then blamed you for the height. That was never fair. I thought being free meant doing whatever I wanted. But freedom without accountability is just chaos. And I drowned in it. You were never cold, Daniel. You were steady. You held the ground while I chased every storm. And when I asked for space, you gave it to me, but you also gave me something I didn't realize I needed, the truth. Thank you for letting me fall. I'm learning how to stand again. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. But I wanted to tell you something I never said when it mattered. You were the best part of my life. And I hope, one day, you'll find someone who sees that before it's too late. Rachel. I sat with the letter in my hands for a long time. Not crying. Not hurting. Just remembering. We weren't meant to last. That was clear now. But that didn't mean the years were meaningless. I spent that evening cleaning out the last drawer of the office. I came across an old flash drive labeled Italy Trip and used footage. I plugged it in. Clips of us walking hand in hand down cobblestone streets, laughing over wine and burnt pizza. A video she took of me watching a street violinist, completely unaware, just smiling. I'd forgotten what that smile looked like on me. And I realized something then. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for an apology or proof she regretted it. I had it now. And it didn't change the past, but allowed me to release it. Weeks passed. I started running in the mornings. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during the slow decay of our marriage. I joined a weekend hiking group. And one Saturday, while volunteering at a local shelter, a new habit I'd picked up for the structure and silence it gave me, I met someone. Her name was Claire. She didn't ask about my past. Not right away. She just handed me a box of canned goods, smiled, and said, "You look like you could use someone to talk to after this shift." And I said, "Yeah, I think I could." We walked for an hour that day, just talking. About books, about music, about the comfort of routine and the fear of getting comfortable again. It wasn't love at first sight. It was better. It was understanding. Weeks turned into months. One evening, I told Claire the story. All of it. She didn't flinch. She just listened. And when I finished, she said something I'll never forget. Surviving someone doesn't mean you have to forget them. It just means you finally learned how to remember yourself. Now, when I wake up, the quiet doesn't hurt. It heals. I make my coffee, still black, still strong. I sit in the chair that used to feel too big for one person. And now it fits just right. The man Rachel left behind? He's gone. But the man who remained, who rebuilt from the rubble, who stood through the storm, who learned how to choose peace over punishment. He's still here. And for the first time in a very long time, he's free. Not every ending needs justice. Sometimes healing is its own kind of revenge and redemption.